What about mercury?
Um, well, that's a good question because that's probably the most common question we get. I was just at our booth today and had several people come up and say, well, what about mercury? And uh, it's an interesting question because on one hand, I'm pleased to be able to say that we focus on seafood and on particular species that are known to be the cleanest. And those are generally species that don't live very long. They live in areas that are known to be the cleanest waters on Earth. So Alaska salmon, for instance. And Alaska salmon generally live 2 to 4 years, so they're not around bioaccumulating toxins very long. Same with sardines, mackerel. The species that do tend to live longer, like off the boats. So they're definitely the cleanest that our customers can find anywhere. But I say it's an interesting question because the science is that people are not getting sick from eating seafood. When you look at the studies, there's never been a single peer-reviewed published paper linking mercury toxicity to ocean seafood, except people that are eating large pilot whale, large marine mammals that have exceptionally high levels of mercury, uh, areas where there have been industrial accidents, such as Minamata, Japan. But really, if you look around the world, the people who have the healthiest brains, uh, hearts, joints, skin, blood, eyes, those are the people that are eating the most seafood. And you look at the studies that are the most rigorous, some of the most elegant studies, and they don't say don't eat seafood, they say eat more seafood. So I'm happy to answer questions about mercury, but I don't